Good morning, and welcome to the Small Cities CDBG application workshop. This is a 1-minute heads up that we're starting. I'll come back in 1 minute. That way we'll make sure that as many people are on this as possible. Good morning. Good morning again. This is the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs Small Cities CDBG application workshop for 2022-2023. Welcome. My name is Brad Harrington. I'm the Administrator of Neighborhood Programs here at DCA within the Division of Housing and Community Resources. I oversee the Small Cities CDBG program. I'll be a presenter today along with the other staff of Small Cities CDBG. In order, after me, you will hear Jakari Smith, and after him, you will hear Colleen Devereaux. This is being done through GoToWebinar. It is an audio-only webinar with PowerPoint slides. It is being recorded, and the recording will be on the Small Cities Program webpage within the DCA website by next week. We will take questions and answers following the last slide in this webinar. And all of you that are participating should have a control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I believe you will have at the top of it, there is a white arrow inside an orange rectangle, and if you enlarge that, one of the options you have available is questions. So feel free to type in your questions. We will answer them at the end of this webinar. There's also one handout that I've placed in that same control panel, which you can download while this webinar is active. And that handout happens to be the Small Cities CDBG final plan that pertains to this application cycle and also the content of this webinar. Okay, I'm going to advance to the next slide. We, the state of New Jersey, are the CDBG grantee. And in HUD parlance, in federal government parlance, we are the responsible entity. So we are overall in charge of what we have to do regarding CDBG. As a reminder, Small Cities CDBG is available to those parts of New Jersey that are non-entitlement areas, meaning places that aren't a city that is automatically eligible for CDBG by regulation and by funding formula. Also, certain counties which are similarly eligible, known as urban counties. We are dealing with units of general local governments, also known as UGLGs, or as I've heard HUD staff or HUD related consultants call them UGLUGs. Not a favorite term of mine, but that's what they say. Anyway, units of general local government will be the grantees or CDBG subrecipients for small cities. State CDBG cannot fund entitlement communities, nonprofit or for-profit organizations directly. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. We at the state cannot fund entitlement communities with small city CDBG funds, nor can we directly fund nonprofit or for-profit organizations, just units of general local government. Also, we have maximum feasible deference with respect to our state CDBG program. And that really means that that HUD is counting on us to do the right thing, and that we know what we are doing, and that our interpretation of the statutory requirements and regulatory requirements are what they will count on us doing. So that's what that stands for. We are HUD when it comes to monitoring subrecipients for compliance with the regulations for the for CDBG, excuse me, which can be found at 24 CFR Part 570, and in particular subpart I, letter I, which is 570.480, is the part that pertains to state CDBG programs. All projects that are submitted for our consideration, and let me make clear, we have opened our application cycle. In fact, that's been active in SAGE for a week since last Wednesday, October 19th. All projects that we fund, and really all applications that we are to consider, must meet at least one of the 3 national objectives that has been authorized under law. Number 1, and it's underlined on purpose, undertake community development activities that benefit persons of low and moderate income. This is by far the national objective that is used the most. Second possible national objective is to prevent or eliminate slums and blight. Third possible objective is to meet urgent community development needs for which no other funding is available. In the final plan that was put forward and approved for use with regard to small city CDBG for this current fiscal year, which is state 2023, federal 2022, we have a total allocation of $6,707,393. You see the admin figure available. Subtracting that, it leads to the funds available for awards, which is just over $6.4 million. Next slide shows for 2022 our allocations among various project types. First is public facilities, 4.3 million and change. Next is housing rehab with the possibility of emergency housing repair, and that is $1.1 million even. Lastly is the Innovative Development Fund, and that's $1 million even. It totals up to the allocation amount that you saw on the prior slide. Okay, I am now going to turn the presentation over to Jakari Smith to discuss the various funds in a little bit more detail that are available this year. Jakari?
Hello and good morning. As Brad said, my name is Jakari Smith. I will be going over a few more of the upcoming slides during the webinar. First, we'll start off with the Public Facilities Fund. This funds the construction or reconstruction of essential public infrastructure that primarily benefits people of low and moderate income. Public facility funds are not eligible for maintenance projects in order to qualify projects by low, moderate census data or income surveys. The maximum grant award is $400,000. And the $400,000 max request for public facilities can be exceeded if compelling reasons are presented and accepted by DCA. You can go to the next slide, Brad. Next up, we have the Housing Rehabilitation Fund for single family owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program. Grantee develops housing rehabilitation manual and establishes a local revolving loan fund. The maximum grant award for municipalities are $200,000, multi-jurisdiction $300,000, and county $400,000. Can go to the next slide. For the Emergency Housing Repair Fund, this is to assist income eligible owners occupied household with emergency repairs. Town or county must apply on behalf of the homeowner and certify that the condition is an emergency. This assistance is provided on a first come, first served basis, provided that funds are still available. The maximum grant award is $10,000. And I just want to note that we accept applications throughout the year, just not during the annual small cities application submission. Next slide. All right, and next up we have the Innovative Development Fund, which provides funds to a new innovative or timely community development project that falls outside of traditional funding categories. Funds awarded to an UGLUG, but pass through to a non-government entity in the form of a loan. Priority is given to low, moderate income eligible projects or those which create alternative energy sources. The maximum grant award is $400,000. Next slide. Okay, and then we have the local match requirement. Applicants must commit a percentage of the grant request based on the Municipal Revitalization Index, or MRI. So if your MRI ranking is between 0 to 100, that would require a 10% match. 101 to 200, that would require 15%. 201 to 300, that would be 20%. 301 to 400, 30%. And 401 and above would be 50%. And Brad, if you can just go back to slide 10, there was just one more thing I wanted to mention. And I wanted to point out where there are more than one municipality that's participating in a proposed project, you would have to combine the MRI of each and then divide by the number of participating municipalities to obtain the correct MRI. So for example, let's just say I'm just using Woodstown and Piles Grove for an example. You would combine the MRIs for both and then divide by 2. And you can go to the next slide, Brett. Number of applications. Applicants may apply for the following each year: 1 housing rehabilitation grant, 1 public facilities grant, or 1 innovative development grant. Each grant application can only cover 1 specific project. And just a disclaimer, NJDCA retains discretion to award only 1 grant a year per jurisdiction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jakari. Before I turn over the presentation to Colleen Devereaux, I've been alerted that the handout that I thought I had placed in this presentation for viewing and downloading is not working. There's a problem with the link. I apologize for that. I'm not going to be able to fix that, or we aren't going to be able to fix that during this presentation. But since you've all registered, those of you who are participating on here, we can email it to you subsequently. But also the final plan document is available through Sage on the application menu page if you've started an application and when you start your application. It's also prominently on the Small Cities webpage if you go to it and when you go to it. Okay, having said that, Colleen, I'm going to turn it over to you. And you'll be taking us to the through the rest of these slides.
Hello, everybody. I'm Colleen Devereaux with the Small Cities Program. And I'm going to take you through essentially our evaluation and scoring process, what you need to make sure what you need to do to submit a successful application. Go ahead, Brad. The threshold requirements that have to be met, these are requirements that must be achieved in order to have a successful and a approvable application. Is the application CDBG eligible, and does it meet one of those three national objectives? Does it benefit low mod population? Does it address one of the state objectives, which that is on page 3 of our final plan that Brad was just referring to, the list of state objectives? Is it in compliance with citizen participation? Does it meet the local match certification? Is the revolving loan fund addressed in the housing rehab manual for those applications that are housing rehab applications? And does it address the 9 federal and state compliance items? And those federal and state compliance items are listed in the final plan at pages 6 and 7 for further detail on those. And you can proceed, Brad. So factor for all CDBG applications, they must appear on the eligible municipality list, and they're ranked by their score 0 to 100. MRI rank is 20 points. 101 to 200 is 15 points. 201 to 300 is 10 points. 301 to 400 is 5 points, and 401 above is 0 points. So that's how we score the MRI rank. Go ahead, Brad. Community development and housing needs statement. The applicant, you must provide a community development statement of need, which would include community development needs, your housing needs, and status of any applicable land use plans. So your proposed program must address at least one of the areas identified in the statement that you provide. And this is for a score of 20 points, up to 20 points. Go ahead, Brad. Program impact, low mod income people benefiting from the proposed project. How many people? If it's greater than 100, you get 20 points. 30 to 99 people is 10 points, and less than 30 is 0 points. However, housing rehab programs automatically get 20 points, and they're generally less than 30. So we give them 20 points. Okay, Brad. Balance ratio. The open program balances of the past 3 funding years. The ratio score divides total balance by 3 years. NJDCA reserves a right not to fund an applicant should a substantial balance exist in prior grant awards at the time of the application. So For a balance ratio less than 50, you get 10 points, and greater than 50, you get 0 points. Okay, Brad. Readiness to proceed. How quickly can your project commence? Is there a draft environmental review record, which actually you should already have? That's one of the threshold items. So you should have a draft environmental review record already submitted with your application. Are there approved plans and project specifications for your projects, generally public facilities projects? Is a project ready to go out to bid? And for housing rehab projects, 5 or more income eligible projects in the queue. And maximum score is 5 points for that. And go ahead, Brad. Past performance. How was the grant management? Past performance of grant management. Were there deficiencies? We look at audits and how well a grantee basically followed the program guidelines. And there's a max score of 10 points there. Okay, Brad. Does it address community deficiencies? Does the application adequately address previously identified community needs or deficiencies? And does it make sense? And that's a maximum of 5 points. Go ahead, Brad. We look at your audit findings. Does the applicant list past audit findings? Are they general findings or are they related to grant programs? There may be audit findings of, say, something that has to do with dog licenses or some other thing that totally is not related to our project. So that's something that we don't really factor into, take under consideration. Is a grantee considered high risk? There's no points awarded, but this could possibly disqualify an applicant. Okay, Brad. Grant management. Has the applicant identified a competent grant manager or consulting firm to manage potential grants? And is a grant writer the same as a grant manager? And that's a maximum of 5 points. Go ahead, Brad. Does the applicant indicate that the project addresses an emergency that threatens the health and safety of the community? So just indicate if this is an emergency situation project, it must be documented and certified, and documented and certified that it's a priority consideration. And that's a maximum of 5 points. And maximum 5 bonus points may be awarded on the merits of the application and the applicant, based on the viability of the project with defined project outcomes. Is it a unique approach to meet community needs? The applicant's ability to complete the project within the grant term, how fast can you spend the money? And substantial local matching funds. And is the application complete and well written? And go ahead, Brad. And here's our application schedule. The deadline, application deadline is December 7th. And our review team recommendations will be completed on or about January 31st of next year. And we anticipate the commissioner's announcements of awards to be on or about February 14th of next year. Okay, Brad.
I'm going to make one comment before going to the next slide, Colleen.
Mm-hmm.
We have also set up an initiation deadline in SAGE, which is 2 days prior to the application deadline. So plan to start your application not at the last minute, but before the last minute. And if you happen to be late and starting it, the latest you'll be able to start it is December 5th of this year for the due date of December 7th.
And this slide shows your federal compliance items that they were described on pages 6 and 7 in your final plan. You have to have the environmental review record. You have to have a citizens participation plan and resolution, fair housing and civil rights and resolution, procurement and professional service agreements for those that have consultants. Section 3 and MBE must be addressed, and those reports will be in SAGE. And you must have at least registered for SAMS, which is now the unique identity. What is it? Unique entity identifier. And those are the federal compliance items. Okay, Brad. And here are our staff contacts. Should you need to contact any of us, here's our contacts. And Brad, you said this will also be available in a number of these slides in a couple of different areas.
That's right. This, as a reminder, the presentation is being recorded, so this will be available by next week on the Small Cities webpage. We can also make the entire slide presentation available. As you see, there's 27 of them, including first and last. To everyone who attended, we can send those out, and most likely we'll also post them to the Small Cities webpage as well. Okay, we'll now start question and answer. Jakari, I am going to ask you to read off any questions that have been posted so far.
Sure. So the first one I see, we got a compliment regarding the presentation was excellent.
Thank you.
It says one applicant is considering a program to assist low moderate income qualified homeowners to connect their homes to a newly installed water system. Would such a project still be eligible Innovative Development Fund? Sorry, just give me 1 second. It's a little tough trying to read this on here. Innovative Development Fund application, provided we only assist low moderate income homeowners. Also, do we have discretion on the nature of the assistance provided? The applicant currently offers home rehabilitation as 100% deferred loans. Can we be more liberal by offering grants to low moderate income homeowners to connect the new water system?
That's quite a question.
Yes, it is.
I think, at least for me, I'm going to reserve an answer until I can read that question. And perhaps we'll need to engage with the asker directly so that we can give as best an answer as possible.
Agreed.
So, unfortunately, we're not able to really answer that right now, but we will give you a more complete answer in the coming days.
Okay. All right, so the next one, you asked for one paper copy of the application in a binder to be mailed to Small Cities Administrator. Do you need original sealed solutions and original blue ink Schedule G and Schedule H?
Yes. Yeah, we're cutting down on paper. We haven't eliminated it entirely, but in that one original, yes, we would want the resolution to the best extent possible sealed, and then ink signatures on the documents. What we're hoping is that even though time-wise this isn't the norm for small cities and its application cycle, there's still enough time to do all this in terms of preparing necessary documents and in terms of resolutions, getting them sealed.
Okay.
Colleen,
Brett,
I'm gonna defer to Colleen a little bit on that. So agreement with what I said?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Brad, if you can just double check the questions area, for some reason it's showing up very tiny on my end.
Okay.
I think I saw Terry had put in a question regarding the handout, so I think that was what you had addressed earlier, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay, all right. I think that that might have been it, but you can just double check just to make sure I covered all the questions that were submitted.
Yes. Now, it is possible that all of you watching are seeing the questions now, but that's okay. I see now who asked the long question, which is great. Right, so okay, there are a couple. There is another question in here. Yes, I'll just read it and then respond as best I can. Given the short turnaround time for this application, especially compared to prior years, has any consideration been given to extending the deadline even by a few weeks? If not, has any consideration been given to requiring fewer than 5 work write-ups for housing rehab bonus points? That is a good question. We did consider this very thoroughly in terms of the submittal deadline for the application, and we arrived at December 7th very carefully, because we know that it's later than it usually is, and to go any later, I think, can cause us some programmatic concerns internally here, which I don't expect any of you to have sympathy for, but it's still something we have to consider. We will take under consideration that request for fewer than 5 work write-ups.
I also want to say that this particular category of the application review is 5 points max. So it's not a huge, it's not going to put a huge dent, I think, in your application points to not have 5 applicants ready to go. If you have 2 or 3, just list how many you have, and you know, we'll score it based on that. But this is only to a maximum of 5 points, so it's not going to really have that strong of an impact on your application points overall.
Thank you for that additional comment, Colleen.
Okay.
All right, at the moment, we have no other questions.
I see a note here that the handout leads to a page that doesn't seem to work.
Yes. So I have addressed that already.
Okay, my apologies.
Yes. And I think another question did just come in. So Jakari, if you can see it, please read it.
This one says hearing virtually. May a municipality hold its public hearings virtually?
The answer is yes. Yes.
I was going to say that sounds very reasonable. I think even if COVID is much better, I think we've moved in, the world has moved in a different way when it comes to public hearings. So yes, that should help things out, I would imagine. Okay. Jakari, any more questions that have been posted?
No, I don't see any more.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to end this presentation. I thank everyone who has participated. As I said before, this is recorded. It's being recorded, so the recording will be available by next week at the Small Cities webpage, where the final plan is already available. And then the slides we'll decide whether we just post them on the webpage or email them or both. So in the meantime, you can still see our staff contact information. Please contact with any questions in the upcoming weeks and days as you prepare your applications. I am not the expert on small cities that Colleen is, so I would encourage you to contact her. And Jakari is relatively new, but doing very well, so reach out to him as well. And we'll put our heads together to answer questions if we can't answer them individually. And I know there's the one that was posed that had to do with innovative development, so we owe that answer in a few days' time. Okay, one last check of questions. Nope, no other questions. Okay, thank you everybody for participating. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.